They called me selfish because I wouldn't hand over what my grandfather left me, but they never said who maxed out credit cards in his name, or who lied about emergency surgeries just to take cruise vacations. My name is Callie Monroe, and this is the story of how I protected the last promise of the only man who never betrayed me. It started with a family meeting that wasn't really a meeting, but a trap. And what they didn't know was, this time, I came prepared. If you've ever been guilted into silence, if you've ever had to choose between doing what's right and pleasing the people who only show up when they need something, this story is for you. You're watching Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending, where quiet strength meets justice, and the truth always finds its voice. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who needs to remember. You don't owe anyone your silence just because they share your last name. 3 weeks after Grandpa's funeral, my phone lit up with a group text from my mother. Sunday, 3 p.m., family meeting, don't be late. No context, no warmth, just an order dressed as an invitation. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I typed nothing. I already knew what this was. My gut said it wasn't grief or remembrance that brought her to send that text. It was business, and not the kind you shake hands over. When I pulled up to the old house in Portland, blue shutters, clipped hedges, porch swing still squeaking in the wind, I noticed the curtains were drawn tight. A small detail, but loud in its meaning. They were preparing for something, or someone. Inside, it hit me. This wasn't home anymore. The furniture was in place, but everything felt staged. My younger sister Paige sat stiffly on the couch, eyes fixed on her lap like she was being punished. Landon, my older brother, leaned against the window frame, arms crossed, gaze floating somewhere far outside. And then I saw them, two strangers in charcoal suits, legs crossed neatly, notepads resting on tailored knees. They stood when I entered. "Callie," my mother said, her voice stretched into a smile that never reached her eyes. "Meet our family advisors." Ah, so that's what we were calling them. I nodded once, no handshake, no small talk. I sat down and placed my leather folder in my lap like armor. "Would you like some coffee?" she asked, playing hostess. "No," I said, locking eyes with her. "I'd like to know why I'm here." "Because we're family," she said sweetly, "and your grandfather would have wanted us to work together." That's when I knew. This wasn't a meeting. It was an ambush. They weren't here to remember Robert Monroe. They were here to pry open what he left behind. But I came prepared, because what they hadn't realized yet was this. I wasn't the same Callie they used to guilt into silence. Not anymore. The day they read the will, it rained so hard the courthouse windows shook. We gathered in a dark-paneled room that smelled like old leather and lemon polish. My mother wore a black wrap dress and oversized sunglasses like she was auditioning for a midday soap. Paige dabbed her eyes with a tissue, more performative than pained. Landon looked hungover. The attorney, a precise man named Mr. Caffrey, cleared his throat and read through the formalities. A few donations here, a scholarship there, some bequests for loyal employees. Then he paused. "To my granddaughter, Callie Jane Monroe, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all shares in Monroe TimberTech, investment portfolios, and personal property." The room went silent. And then, it exploded. "This is a joke," my mother snapped, ripping off her sunglasses. "He must have been manipulated. Read it again." "I've read it several times," Caffrey replied. "Your father was unequivocal." Paige's lip quivered. "He loved all of us. He wouldn't have chosen favorites." Landon didn't speak. He just rubbed his temples and looked away. I sat there frozen, not from fear, but from the weight of it. This wasn't favoritism. It was a torch being passed. Because what Grandpa left me wasn't just land and ledgers. It was everything he'd built from a borrowed truck and a handshake. He knew what it cost, and now it was mine. When we left, my mother stopped me in the parking lot, voice smooth as satin laced with venom. "Just sign it over," she said. "We'll divide it fairly, make sure everyone's taken care of." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted her to hear the silence she never let me have. And in that silence, something became clear. She thought this legacy was about money, but Grandpa and I, we knew better. It was about who would protect it and who would burn it to the ground. The guilt came fast, and it came dressed in love. The day after the will was read, My phone lit up with a message from Mom. One day you'll understand what family means, what it costs. I didn't respond. Then came Paige. Be kind. We're blood. That should count for something. Landon said nothing, but his silence didn't feel neutral. It felt calculated. Then the requests started. Mom sent screenshots of overdue credit cards, notes about the mortgage, a picture of a cracked driveway with the caption, "Guess who can't afford repairs now?" Then came the line that changed everything. "If you won't be reasonable, we'll settle this in court." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I opened a blank Google Doc and started copy-pasting everything. By the end of the week, I had over 30 pages of messages. Guilt bombs, passive-aggressive barbs, thinly veiled threats, pictures of luxury handbags with the text, "Retail therapy, don't judge." They were trying to spin a story, that I was hoarding something that was never mine to begin with. But I knew the truth. And so did Grandpa. Still, I wasn't going to fight this alone. I called Noah, my boyfriend, and a civil litigator by day. He listened quietly, brows furrowed. "You need someone outside of this emotionally," he said. "I know just the person." That's how I met Melissa Tran. Her office was tucked above a florist shop. No mahogany desks or intimidating glass walls. Just clean light, green plants, and a woman who looked like she'd seen the worst of people and chose not to flinch. After I finished telling her everything, she leaned back, arms crossed lightly. "You're already in the middle of a pressure campaign," she said. "Textbook manipulation. But the will is strong, the documents are clean, and you haven't signed a thing. That gives you power." "I don't want a war," I whispered. "Then let's prepare for one anyway," she replied, calm and sure. "Because love should never sound like a threat." So I printed every message, archived every voicemail, logged every attempt to push, pressure, or shame me. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone in this fight. I felt ready. The next invitation came via text. No surprise. "Sunday, 3 p.m. House. Bring your paperwork." No greeting, no signature, no emoji. It felt like a summons, not an invitation. Melissa didn't like it. "This smells like an ambush," she said, tapping the screen with one manicured finger. "It is," I replied, "but I'm not walking in blind." She offered to come. I declined. "Just wait outside. If I text a single word, now, come in." 1 minute response time, she promised. I pulled up to the house at 2:59, right on time. I noticed the porch had been swept clean, and Mom's perfume hung faintly in the air. She'd been rehearsing. She opened the door before I could knock. "Callie," she beamed, like she was greeting a brunch guest. "Come in, come in." Inside, the setup was different this time, more formal. The couch had been moved back, the armchairs repositioned. One wooden chair sat directly across from two suited men I didn't recognize, interrogation style. "This is Mr. Granger and Mr. Ellis," Mom said, gesturing grandly. "They're here to help us resolve this little misunderstanding." They stood, smiling too widely, hands extended. I gave them a nod, no more. I took the lone chair and set my folder on my lap. "Coffee?" Mom offered, still clinging to her performance. "I'm good. Let's start." Mr. Granger cleared his throat. "Your family is concerned about the strain this has caused. No one wants to see a courtroom. Surely you agree unity is more important than division." I let silence do the talking. Mom jumped in. "No one's questioning the will, sweetheart, but wouldn't splitting the estate evenly feel more harmonious?" "Harmony wasn't in the will either," I said flatly. Mr. Ellis slid a thick document across the table. "A voluntary redistribution agreement. You retain 20%. The rest goes back to the family." "Back?" I asked. "To where it never was?" Paige finally spoke, voice trembling. "Grandpa wasn't thinking clearly. He thought you'd do the right thing." "He did think that," I said. "And I am." Landon shifted uncomfortably. Mom leaned forward. "If we don't fix this, we could lose the house. Refinance is impossible now." I blinked. "Did someone take out a second mortgage again?" Her expression cracked for a second, then snapped back. Mr. Granger stepped in. Legal action could damage the estate's reputation. There it was, the threat, polished in corporate phrasing. I placed my hand on the folder. "Before we continue," I said evenly, Let's clarify something. Craig, you mentioned to Grandpa's nurse that you'd already put a deposit on a beach house in Naples. Was that with inheritance money you didn't have yet? He went pale. I have the audio and a paper trail. Mom's smile dropped. Paige looked stunned. I slid across printouts, text messages, Venmo receipts, a photo of Mom holding champagne under the caption, "Deserved this." And then, from the folder, I pulled the final page, a sealed envelope. "If they come for it, give them this," Grandpa had written. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The suit sat back, visibly shaken. "We're not legal counsel," one murmured. "Good," I said, "because my actual attorney is in the car outside, and I won't be signing anything." And just like that, their little setup collapsed. This time, I didn't flinch. I let them feel the weight of everything I refused to carry anymore. They didn't ask what was in the envelope. They didn't dare. It just sat there, between us, like a loaded weapon wrapped in Grandpa's handwriting. "For Callie, if they come for it." 5 words. That was all it said on the outside, but it was enough to crack the room. Mr. Ellis swallowed hard, his legal pad suddenly very interesting. Mr. Granger leaned back as if distance could shield him from implication. Mom stared at the envelope like it might burst into flames. And Paige, she just blinked, slowly, like someone waking up too late from a dream they tried to control. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just spoke, even and clear. "You thought this was about control, about rebalancing the scales your way, but Grandpa never meant for this to be shared like a birthday cake. He meant it to be protected." Mom stood up so fast her chair screeched across the hardwood. "You ungrateful little—" I slid another paper across the table. May 12th, $18,000, labeled Paige Dental Emergency. I looked directly at her. "That was a spa weekend in Scottsdale. I still have the invoice. The monogrammed robe you posted? That gave it away." Paige turned ghost white. Craig muttered something under his breath and sat back down, arms crossed like a sulking teenager. "This is disgusting," Mom hissed. "Digging through a dead man's notes to make us look bad?" I looked at her, calm. "He kept notes because he knew you would try this." No one spoke. I stood, folded the envelope, and tucked it back into my folder. That was when I noticed Landon. He hadn't said a word all afternoon, but now he looked at me and nodded. Then he turned to Mom. "You told me she was selfish," he said softly. "But you lied. About the money, about the house, about everything." "Sit down," Mom snapped. "No." The word landed like a gavel. He turned to me. "Can I come with you?" I nodded. "Let's go." Craig took one step toward us, chest puffed like a bouncer. I raised my phone. "This conversation's been recorded, from the moment I walked in." He froze. We left in silence, past a family who had spent their lives talking over me. For the first time, I didn't look back. Melissa was already out of her car when we stepped onto the porch. "You okay?" "He's with me," I said, motioning to Landon. "And yes, we're done here." The door slammed behind us, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt air fill my lungs. Melissa didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. One look at me, then at Landon trailing a step behind with his jaw clenched and his shoulders sagging. That was enough. She opened the back seat door like she had done this 1,000 times. "We can debrief later," she said. "Let's just go." The car ride was quiet. Not uncomfortable, just still. Landon stared out the window, arms folded, his fingers twitching against his sleeves like he was trying to keep them from saying too much. I rested my head against the cool window and let the silence settle. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself. No incoming texts, no veiled threats, no rehearsed smiles, just air. When we pulled up to my apartment, Landon hesitated before getting out. "You don't have to let me stay," he said quietly. "I know I've been—" "You're staying," I cut in, grabbing my bag. "Couch pulls out. Sheets are clean." He didn't argue, just nodded. Inside, I made tea while he sat on the edge of the couch like a guest in someone else's life. We didn't talk about what happened. Not the fake advisors, not the envelope, not the way Mom had looked at us like we'd betrayed her with truth. We just sat. I scrolled through emails. He stared at the ceiling. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was healing. After a while, he spoke. You know, I always thought I'd take over the company one day. Grandpa used to walk me around the floor, point at things, and say, "This is how you run it right." I believed him, until I didn't. I looked up, surprised. He kept his eyes on the ceiling. I wasn't ready, still not. But you were always paying attention, even when nobody was watching. I wanted to thank him, but the words caught in my throat, so I poured him more tea instead. That night, we fell asleep in separate rooms, but under the same roof. And I realized something. The legacy Grandpa left wasn't about money, or buildings, or ownership. It was about choice. The choice to build something instead of destroy it. The choice to tell the truth even when it breaks your family. The choice to close a door and not look back. A week later, I returned to the house Grandpa left me. Not the house where I grew up. Not really. That house had become something else in the hands of people who used its walls as bargaining chips. But now, it was quiet. Empty in the way that invited reflection, not regret. I walked through the rooms slowly. The air still held a faint scent of cedar, coffee grounds, and old paper. In the study, dust danced through a sliver of afternoon sun. His desk was exactly how I remembered it. No clutter, no mess, just sharp pencils, blank ledgers, and a sense of calm. In the center drawer, beneath a file labeled Legacy Planning, I found it. His journal. Brown leather, worn edges, his handwriting, tight and unfussy, filling every page. Names, numbers, deals struck with handshakes, mistakes he admitted without shame, notes to himself written like advice to someone he hoped would come after. And near the back, scribbled in the margin of a supply ledger, Callie sees what Elena never could. Restraint, clarity. If she chooses to lead, this business might survive me. If she chooses to love it, it might outlive us both. I sat there a long time. No tears, just breath. That afternoon, I met Melissa for lunch at a quiet cafe tucked behind a bookstore. Over grilled cheese and tomato soup, I handed her the journal. She read the entry in silence, then nodded slowly. "This is more than sentiment," she said. "It's strategic. It documents his intent. We'll file it as supplemental evidence with the probate court." We also drafted a new trust, not for the family, for Landon, a small but meaningful educational fund, enough to help him finish his business degree with no strings attached. "This is clean," Melissa said. "Fair, generous." That night, I came home to find Landon on the couch, flipping through one of Grandpa's old trade magazines. "You know," I said, leaning on the doorway, "he always wanted to pivot Monroe Timber Tech toward sustainable materials." Landon looked up. Eco-lumber, thermal concrete, solar reflective paints, but the board wouldn't move fast enough. He raised an eyebrow. "You thinking what I think you're thinking?" "Internship," I said. "Real work, no shortcuts. You in?" He blinked, then smiled. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." We clinked mismatched mugs of lukewarm tea, not a toast to victory, but to something better, a new beginning. 1 year later, the doors to Monroe Timber Tech reopened, not with a ribbon cutting or media fanfare, just a new sign, Monroe Timber Tech Green, new logo, new mission, same foundation. We didn't need headlines, we needed progress, and that's what we made. Landon came in early every morning, clipboard in hand, steel-toed boots on, and questions that showed he was actually listening. He wasn't perfect, but he was focused, steady, becoming the kind of man Grandpa had once hoped he'd be. We launched 2 new eco-friendly product lines by the end of Q2, partnered with 3 regional builders committed to sustainable housing. The board that once resisted change, they got out of the way. Sometimes Paige texts me, nothing big, a forwarded meme, a photo of a dog. Once, a blurry picture of the old kitchen. I don't always reply, but I don't block her either. Some doors stay cracked, not for reconciliation, but for recognition that not everything broken needs to be swept away. As for my mother, she left town a few months after everything collapsed. Bought a condo in Scottsdale, no forwarding address. I heard through a mutual acquaintance she's calling it a reinvention. That's fine. We all reinvent ourselves in one way or another. The difference is, I didn't need to erase people to do it. I walk into the office now and see what Grandpa built. but also what I shaped. The floors are the same. The smell of sawdust still clings to the hallways. But the people, the vision, that's mine. I didn't inherit an empire. I inherited a challenge. A challenge to protect what mattered, discard what didn't, and plant something new in the ruins of entitlement. People think legacy is about what you leave behind, but it's also about what you refuse to carry forward. Grandpa once wrote in his journal, "Callie won't always be loved for doing what's right, but she'll sleep at night." He was right. I do. The wealth he gave me wasn't in stocks or deeds. It was in clarity, in boundaries, in choosing myself over the approval of people who only loved me when I played small. I didn't just carry his legacy, I reclaimed it. And finally, I signed my own name on it, my way.